How they are playing her and treating her is different, whether we like it or not, whether you're a Caitlin Clark fan or not, whether you like her or dislike her. How they are playing her is different than any other athlete we are seeing. And if you say otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
But here's the media tried to bury it. The league stayed silent. But now, the world is finally waking up. Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's biggest draw, its most talked about rookie, and arguably the face of the league, is being hacked, shoved, and blindsided every game, and no one's stepping in. Fans see it. Broadcasters are calling it out. And after months of gaslighting, the truth can't be ignored anymore. This isn't physical play. This is a full-blown campaign of jealousy, resentment, and sabotage, and it's turning into a public relations disaster. Because when the media finally speaks up, even the WNBA can't hide behind silence anymore.
But I will say this, though. I'm not really worried about Caitlin. I'm really worried about the WNBA in general. Because she is so big to sports, let alone to the WNBA. And I keep saying plays where after the whistle's blown, they taking shots at her.
Let's not sugarcoat it. Caitlin Clark is being targeted, and it's not subtle. From hip checks after the whistle to flagrant fouls disguised as hard defense, what we're watching isn't just rough basketball. It's violence masquerading as competitiveness, and the WNBA's silence has been deafening. Let's rewind. Back in college, Clark was known for her confidence, her swagger, her range. She was the player opponents feared and respected. But the moment she stepped onto a WNBA court, that fear turned to something darker. Jealousy, resentment, even hostility. Suddenly, every game came with a new "Welcome to the League" hit, except it never stopped. And worse, the league let it happen. The turning point came when the medias, the same media that once downplayed fan concerns, started paying attention. Footage started circulating online. Clips of Clark getting elbowed off the ball, knocked to the floor without a whistle, shoved from behind after the play. Fans broke it down in slow motion. Analysts ran replays. Even retired NBA stars started speaking up. "That's not basketball," one of them said. "That's targeted assault." And they weren't wrong. What made this more shocking was the referee's response or lack thereof. In one clip that went viral, Clark was blatantly fouled right in front of a ref, who simply watched and jogged back up the court. No whistle, no reaction, just apathy. The message was loud and clear. Clark wasn't going to get the same treatment other stars receive. Not even close. And let's talk about the hypocrisy. NBA legends like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, they were physical targets too. But when they got hit, refs blew the whistle. Fouls were called. Players were fined. Because protecting the league's biggest names wasn't just good policy, it was good business. But in the WNBA, Clark gets decked, and the league shrugs it off like it's part of the game. That double standard hasn't gone unnoticed. It sparked a wildfire of backlash online. Fans are calling for fines, suspensions, accountability. Some are even boycotting games. Because what's the point in showing up to support a player when it looks like the league itself doesn't want her to succeed? And here's the kicker: Clark isn't even asking for special treatment. She's not flopping. She's not whining. She's taking hit after hit, still putting up numbers, still drawing crowds, still playing through pain. The real problem? She's doing her job better than anyone expected. That's threatening to a league still unsure how to handle stardom that doesn't fit its usual narrative. The media silence? That's changing too. Major outlets that once ignored or spun these moments are now forced to report on them. Because the evidence is overwhelming. Because the story is too big to ignore. Because if you don't talk about it now, you're complicit in the erasure of a generational talent. But this isn't just a basketball story anymore. It's a culture story, a power story, a narrative about what happens when someone becomes too popular, too quickly, in a space that wasn't ready for them. Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's biggest Durand. Instead of protecting her, the league stood by while she got punished for it. And that's only the beginning. There's a difference between tough basketball and targeted abuse, and Caitlin Clark is learning that line gets crossed far too often in the WNBA. Everyone keeps saying it's just physical play. That Clark needs to toughen up, that it's part of the game. But anyone with a working pair of eyes can see this goes beyond box outs and hard screens. This is no longer about defense, it's about dominance. And not the strategic kind. This is about humbling the rookie who's outshining the vets. It's about punishing the spotlight, not just the player. Because when elbows fly after the whistle, when shoulders come in away from the ball, and when referees seem to swallow their whistles the second Clark hits the hardwood, what are we really watching? Basketball? Or a slow-motion campaign of quiet retaliation dressed up as toughness? The footage doesn't lie. You can rewind it over and over again. Time after time, Clark gets hit with cheap foul shoulder checks, hip bumps, and full-blown collisions that would be flagged in any men's league without question. But in her case, crickets. The refs stand there, motionless, eyes wide shut. And the league? Nowhere to be found. There's no accountability, no fines, no suspensions, no statements. Just silent approval and awkward media tap dancing? And that silence is loud. See, this isn't happening to every rookie. This isn't even happening to every top draft pick. It's happening to one player. The one changing the economics of the entire sport. The one who's outselling entire rosters in jersey sales. The one who has more Instagram followers than most franchises. The one who's become the WNBA's walking headline. Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player, she's a disruptor, and that makes her a threat. Not to the fans, not to the future, but to the status quo. So what's really going on here? The truth is ugly, but it's simple: jealousy in disguise. A veteran-heavy league isn't quite sure how to handle a 22-year-old rookie who's outdrawing them in ticket sales, hijacking every media cycle, and earning more endorsement deals than most of them have game minutes. And instead of rising to the challenge, some players would rather drag her down, because it's easier to throw elbows than elevate your own play. Just look at how many times the phrase "she needs to earn it" has been whispered, tweeted, and half-muttered in post-game interviews. Earn what exactly? She's breaking viewership records, delivering assists, dropping threes from the logo, and filling arenas that were once half empty. If that's not earning it, what is? But jealousy rarely announces itself openly. Instead, it hides behind phrases like "welcome to the league" or "this is how we play here." It pretends to be initiation, but in reality, it's rejection. It's saying, "You may be great, but you're not one of us." And in that culture of quiet resentment, violence becomes the equalizer. The fans see it. The clips go viral. The replays don't lie. But the media, for the longest time, refused to say it out loud. Because to acknowledge that Caitlin Clark is being targeted is to admit that the league has a culture problem, a problem that runs deeper than basketball, one rooted in identity, image, and insecurity. But cracks are forming. Even neutral analysts are starting to speak up. Even former pros are calling it out. And that's because it's becoming impossible to ignore. When a player gets knocked down 4 times in one game and the refs don't call a single foul, that's not physical, that's malicious. And when that same player is expected to smile through it, shake hands after it, and adjust to it, that's not tough love, that's gaslighting. It's not just on the refs, it's on the league, it's on the coaches, it's on the execs, who say they want to grow the game, but let this play out like a street fight on national television. You can't claim you want fans, sponsors, and global respect, and then let your most bankable star get battered like she's expendable. This isn't about protecting one player, it's about deciding what kind of league this is going to be. Because if the WNBA lets this continue, they're not just failing Caitlin Clark, they're sending a message to every future star watching from home. You're not welcome unless you play small. And that's the real problem, because Caitlin Clark was never meant to play small. Turn on any sports network, scroll through any headline, and you'll notice something strange, something off. Caitlin Clark is everywhere, and yet somehow, nowhere at all. One minute, she's being praised for saving the WNBA. The next, she's getting blindsided by elbows and shoved to the ground with barely a whisper from the same media outlets that once called her the face of the league. So what happened? How did the golden girl of women's basketball become the media's favorite cautionary tale? The answer? A double standard so blatant, it's practically shouting through a megaphone. When Clark succeeds, the coverage is immediate. Her logo threes, no-look dimes, and sold-out arenas dominate the news cycle. She trends on every platform, racks up millions of views, and headlines every major sports outlet. But when she gets targeted, when she's left limping after another no-call collision, or when she's elbowed for the 5th time in a week, the media turns into a mime convention, silent, awkward, pretending nothing happened. Now compare that to the coverage when another player, say, a league veteran jets into a minor scuffle or receives harsh contact. Suddenly, it's a discussion. Suddenly, we're talking about league safety, player respect, and systemic aggression. But Caitlin? Crickets. Or worse, deflection. Suddenly, the story isn't about the foul. It's about how she needs to adjust, how she's not used to physicality, how she brought this on herself. This is the media mirage. Make her the headline when it suits the agenda, but abandon her when it gets messy. And this isn't just media laziness, it's a calculated dodge. Because admitting what's really going on means confronting some uncomfortable truths, that Clark's rapid rise exposed deep insecurities in the league, that some players resent her stardom, and that the league's leaders weren't ready for a spotlight this big or this white. Because let's not sugarcoat, iTrace plays a role in the way Clark's coverage is handled. Too successful, too fast, too popular, too blonde. She doesn't fit the existing narrative, so the media scrambles to find a new one that minimizes her impact or paints her as privileged, or even tries to pit her against other players in a phony rivalry designed to distract from the real story. And when the backlash gets too loud, the media plays both sides. They'll run a think piece about unfair treatment while quoting anonymous sources who say Clark needs to stay in her lane. They'll frame her as both victim and villain, all in the same article, depending on which way the engagement winds are blowing. Let's be clear, the media helped build the Caitlin Clark empire, but they're just as ready to tear it down. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. The moment her shine became a threat to the status quo, the tone shifted. Suddenly she's cocky, overhyped, entitled. The same traits that made her a superstar in college are now being rebranded as liabilities in the pros. And it's not just the headlines, it's the omissions. Where's the investigative reporting on why Clark's fouls go uncalled? Where are the exclusive interviews with league officials? Where's the urgency, the advocacy? If this were happening to any other rookie in any other sport, there would be panel discussions, league memos, and endless debate. But here, there's a memo to let her adjust. Let her figure it out alone. So while Caitlin Clark is getting hit on the court and ignored off it, the media gets to sit back and pretend it's balanced coverage. But fans see the game, they see the replays, they hear the silence. And that silence? It's betrayal disguised as professionalism. This isn't just about one player getting fouled. It's about a system both in the league and in the media that treats her visibility as a threat, not an asset. A system that wants her fame, but not her voice. Her highlights, but not her pain. Her profit, but not her protection. And that's why this conversation matters. Because if Caitlin Clark, the most watched, most discussed, most impactful rookie in WNBA history, can't even get fair coverage when she's on the receiving end of repeated abuse, what hope does any rising star have? The truth is, the media loves Caitlin Clark until it's time to stand by her. It's not subtle anymore, the cameras are rolling, the replays are crisp, and the evidence is piling up like receipts on tax day. Caitlin Clark is getting hacked, shoved, body checked, and the referees are acting like they forgot their whistles at home. It started as a few questionable no calls. You know, the kind borderline plays that could go either way. But it's evolved into something so blatant that even casual fans are squinting at their screens, wondering if the officials are reading from a different rulebook entirely. Because if you watch just one Fever game, you'll see the same script repeat. Clark fights through contact, hits the deck, stares at the ref and gets nothing but a polite shrug. People love to say this is just physical basketball, but let's be real. There's a canyon-sized difference between tough defense and a free-for-all brawl. If you want proof, rewind any Indiana game and count how many times Clark hits the floor without a whistle. She gets hip checked so often, it looks like she's playing in a rec league where fouls are optional. And here's what really makes it impossible to ignore. When other rookies, especially the ones the league wants to promote to get, hit even half as hard, the whistles come out faster than you can say flagrant. If Aja Wilson gets grazed on the elbow, the ref's arm is already in the air. If Angel Reese takes a bump, it's an instant foul plus a stern warning. But Caitlin Clark, she has to get tackled WWE style to draw a single free throw. Fans have noticed. They're clipping footage, posting side-by-side comparisons, and creating viral TikToks that show the glaring inconsistency. One viral thread showed Clark getting flattened on 3 separate drives, same ref crew, same lack of calls. In each clip, her teammates were forced to help her up while the officials casually jogged back on defense, as if nothing had happened. This is how resentment festers. Not because Clark can't handle physicality as she's proven she can, but because no other player is being asked to absorb this much punishment without protection. You don't have to be a basketball expert to see that something's off. The inconsistencies are so obvious, they become the story itself. The league insists it reviews officiating performance. The refs have supervisors, they watch the film, they grade the calls. But if that's true, how does this keep happening? How do you explain a month's worth of games where Clark gets battered and the officials look away like they're afraid to intervene? Maybe it's subconscious bias. Maybe it's resentment over the spotlight she's brought. Or maybe, as some have speculated, it's a quiet message. You're not going to get special treatment here. But here's the irony, she's not asking for special treatment. She's asking for the same treatment, the same calls any other star gets, the same respect for the basic rules of the sport. Instead, she gets to be the lightning rod, the scapegoat for veteran insecurities, the convenient target for the league's growing pains. And when the refs refuse to call obvious fouls, it sends a clear signal to everyone else. Do whatever you want to her, no one's going to stop you. That's why these officiating failures aren't just a footnote, they're a crisis. Because every time Caitlin gets trucked and the refs swallow their whistles, the credibility of the entire league takes a hit. Every time a flagrant foul gets downgraded to good defense, the message to fans is that fairness is negotiable if the right star is on the floor. It's not about protecting her feelings, it's about protecting the game. Because if your officials can't enforce the rules consistently, you don't have a sport, you have chaos. And the more the league tries to downplay it, the worse it looks. Fans aren't stupid. They see the patterns. They see the difference in how other players are treated. At some point, you have to wonder if the WNBA realizes the damage this is doing. Not just to Clark's trust in the system, but to every young fan watching and thinking, if this is how they treat their biggest star, what chance does anyone else have? And that, more than anything, is the officiating blind spot the league can't afford to ignore much longer. Let's stop pretending. The fouls aren't just physical, they're emotional. What Caitlin Clark is dealing with isn't just tough defense, it's decades of resentment crashing down on one rookie's shoulders. And the more successful she becomes, the harder the hits seem to land. Behind all the highlight reels and social media celebrations, there's a toxic undercurrent few people in the league want to acknowledge. Jealousy. Pure, unfiltered, career-sized envy. Caitlin Clark didn't just walk into the WNBA. She walked in as a generational star, sold out arenas in her wake, record-breaking television ratings, a Nike deal, and enough attention to make even seasoned veterans feel invisible. And that spotlight, it doesn't just shine eye blinds. For years, WNBA players have fought for visibility. They've marched, spoken up, grinded on and off the court to move the needle. Then Clark arrived, and in a matter of months, the world changed. Suddenly, the front pages were hers. Talk shows were calling her name. Networks were rescheduling games to air the Indiana Fever. And instead of celebrating the momentum, some players took it personally, as if her presence somehow erased their efforts, as if her fame was stolen, not earned. You can hear it in the passive-aggressive interviews. You can see it in the way players go at her extra elbows, late bumps, constant jawing. It's not all in her head. It's not exaggerated. It's real, and it's raw. Paige Buchers recently called it inhumane how the media treats Clark, but what she didn't say is how much worse it feels coming from her own peers. Because it's one thing to be criticized by analysts. It's another to be isolated by teammates, ignored in huddles, or left to get bulldozed on the court while everyone else watches. The ugly truth? Some players don't want her to succeed. Not because she's a bad teammate or a bad person, but because she's proof that the system didn't reward them the same way. Let's be brutally honest. The WNBA has never seen a player enter with this much heat. And it's not just talent, it's timing, personality, relatability, and media charisma. Clark is the full package. She connects with fans. She breaks the internet. She brings families into arenas. And that triggers something deep in certain corners of the league. Because if you've been in the WNBA for 10 years, grinding for scraps of attention, and suddenly this 22-year-old shows up and becomes the face, it stings. If you've been told for years that your style, your story, your stardom wasn't enough to elevate the league, and now this rookie is doing it by simply playing her game, it creates tension. And no one wants to say it out loud, but we all feel it. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about identity, about who gets to be the face of women's sports, about what fans respond to, and what that says about the future of the league. Some players view Clark as a shortcut to success they never got. Others see her as a mirror showing them what the league values now, and that reflection isn't always flattering. But here's the irony. The players who resent Clark the most are actually hurting themselves. Because every foul, every shove, every cold shoulder becomes fuel for her fire. Every time someone takes a cheap shot, it turns into a viral clip, a new headline, a reminder of just how powerful her presence is. The league doesn't need more bitterness, it needs unity. And no, that doesn't mean players need to kiss the ring, but there's a difference between competitive fire and petty sabotage. Right now, too many players are choosing the latter. It's the jealousy nobody wants to admit, but everyone can see. If you really want to understand what's happening to Caitlin Clark, don't follow the ball, follow the money. Because every hard foul, every elbow, every viral moment where she's thrown to the ground or glared at like an outsider, those aren't just forgotten in the WNBA system. They're monetized, weaponized, and quietly turned into profit. The league sells it as grit. The media spins it as welcome to the league. But let's be honest, it's pain, rebranded for clicks and ticket sales. And it's working, at least in the short term. Think about it. Every time Caitlin gets hit, it trends. Every time she's mistreated, fans post it. The outrage drives engagement. The engagement drives revenue. And the league gets to sit back and pretend it's just part of the game while they cash in on chaos. No statement needed, no policy changes, just another night of headlines and highlight reels. But behind all those metrics is a human being, and she's getting run into the ground. Let's be clear, Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's golden goose. She's selling out arenas the league couldn't fill for decades. She's driving viewership up triple digits. She's making people casuals, men, women, kids care about a product they previously ignored. She is the economy. But instead of building guardrails around her, the league is treating her like she's disposable. Her bruises are your content. Her silence is your safety net. Why protect her when her pain is producing record traffic? The uncomfortable truth is this: the league doesn't want to protect Caitlin because doing so would disrupt the very thing making them money: drama, conflict, rivalry, rough play. In a league desperate for attention, every shove is now a storyline, every foul a feature. And so the system leans into it. Players are emboldened to go harder, talk louder, take shots both physical and verbal because they know the consequences are minimal and the attention is maximal. Meanwhile, Caitlin is left to carry the entire machine on her back while being the target of it at the same time. It's the perfect storm. She's too valuable to lose but too profitable to protect. Even worse, this isn't just happening on the court. Off it, the machine keeps spinning. Every time she gets disrespected, misquoted, or villainized, there's a new article, a new tweet, a new opinion piece dissecting her existence. Not her play, her existence, her tone, her face, her popularity, her whiteness, her confidence, her teammates, her silence. All of it becomes content, monetized, branded, sold. And through all of it, she says nothing. Because if she complains, she's a diva. If she fights back, she's aggressive. If she shows emotion, she's unraveling. So she stays quiet and the league gets louder. Louder with promotions, louder with ticket boosts, louder with PR spin, louder with everything, except accountability. And you have to ask, how long can this model last? How long can the WNBA keep squeezing value from a player it refuses to protect? How long until fans get tired of watching their favorite star get beat down while the league claps from the sidelines? How long until Clark herself decides enough is enough? Because make no mistake, this isn't sustainable. You can't build a dynasty on drama. You can't build loyalty on bruises. And you definitely can't build trust on exploitation. The truth? Caitlin Clark isn't just carrying a basketball. She's carrying a brand, a narrative, a financial system. And every day she does it without complaint, the league convinces itself it's okay to keep going. That silence is approval. That toughness equals tolerance. That profit excuses pain. But when the day comes, Sand, it will when Clark gets hurt one too many times, or walks away too early, or speaks up too loudly, the league won't just lose a player, it'll lose its foundation. Because if the system keeps feeding off her pain, it'll eventually have to face the fallout of her absence. The WNBA's silence speaks louder than any whistle. Caitlin Clark isn't demanding favors, just the same fair treatment every elite athlete deserves. Instead, she's being targeted, bruised, and blamed, while the league cashes in on the chaos. She draws the crowds, fuels the headlines, and keeps the cameras rolling. Yet no one steps up when she's knocked down. This isn't just about basketball anymore, it's about what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. So we're left with one question. Are we witnessing the rise of a generational icon, or the slow public dismantling of one? The clock is ticking.